many of you know I'm openly critical of religion, especially the aspect of religion that requires faith, which pretty much covers almost all religions on the face of this earth. Now, why I'm openly critical of faith is because it's not representative of any sort of progressive thinking that we have used to advance our society. When you think about what faith is in and of itself, it is non-thinking. It is believing things at face value without requiring any sort of evidence, and even if some evidence is produced, that evidence is not necessarily have to meet any sort of standard. The argument goes a little something like this. Well, can you disprove God's existence? I would probably say no. Then they'll turn around and say, well, seeing as you can't disprove God's existence, you have faith that God doesn't exist. Therefore, atheists hold a double standard with regards to criticizing faith. Now where have I heard something like this before? I know. I have made a video showing exactly why atheism is not a religion and why Christianity is a religion. Two videos that I think are related to this one, but how I will refute this argument is slightly different from those two. So, again, I have to start with definitions. Atheists, by definition, do not believe in a god. Why don't they believe in a god? Well, it could be various reasons. One, maybe they've never heard of the god in question. Maybe they have, and maybe they currently don't accept that god because of some personal reasons, or maybe because they see some more practical reasons not to accept that god. Maybe, just like me, atheists don't accept a certain god because they do not see any evidence to suggest that a god exists. So, I could really end this video right here and now by asking the person in return who made this argument, by definition, as an atheist, I lack a belief in your god or gods. So does my lack of faith or my lack of belief in any god or gods necessitate having faith in the first place? So to lack faith in God requires faith. Well, that's a beautiful oxymoron. Oh, well done. Of course, I could go further, and I will go further with this. Because a theist does not necessarily have to refer to the god they believe in, but maybe they're referring to a deistic god. Let's tackle both of those options. So, let's address the theistic god, maybe the god of the Christian Bible. Is there any evidence in science to suggest that the god of the Bible doesn't exist? Well, yeah. Beyond any reasonable doubt, I would think. After all, assuming this God is who he says he is, and did exactly what he did in the Bible, as most Bible literalists will say, then this Christian God cannot be real, considering it contradicts all evidence put forth in geology, in cosmology, paleontology, biology, chemistry, just every area of science, pretty much. The Bible contradicts in almost every single way. For example, take the Genesis account of the 7-day creation period. Nothing in cosmology would suggest that everything in the universe and the world could be created in such a short period of time. Nothing in biology or paleontology would suggest that life spontaneously came about as a result of a divine being's will, especially considering that there's an overwhelming amount of evidence suggesting that life was gradually created over millions of years, as opposed to a 7-day period. And even just nothing in basic logistics makes sense about the creation period, let alone the rest of the Bible. And with that in mind, is it therefore possible for me to say that definitively, 100%, that the God of the Bible does not exist? No, it's not. But wait, Truth, I thought you said that the God of the Bible doesn't exist beyond any reasonable doubt. Yes, I did say that, but that's not to say that a God definitively does not exist. For all I know, maybe the God of the Bible decided to deceive everyone, including the world's most brilliant minds in all areas of science, by planting these clues that would suggest an old Earth and an old universe, and life that formed over millions of years of biological evolution. I think that it is only reasonable for us to come to the conclusion that the God of the Bible, at least in the way that it's presented by Bible literalists, cannot exist. And if it does exist, it cannot be proven to exist. But perhaps that's not the God we're trying to argue for. Maybe we're trying to argue for the existence of a deistic God, a God that is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent, and omnipresent. So what about a deistic God? Can I prove that such a being doesn't exist? Well, no, I can't. At least not yet. And to be quite honest, I don't think it's possible, at least for humankind, to prove that such a being does or does not exist. Because, by definition, of course, it's supernatural. We are bound in the natural world, meaning that a deistic God, or any God in general, would only want to show itself to us if it wants its presence to be known. Which I think kind of defeats the whole purpose of being supernatural in the first place. So for those of you who think I'm extremely close-minded for not even accepting the premise that a deistic God might exist, and indeed I do dismiss the idea of a deistic God existing, then consider this. What can't you justify with that sort of thinking? If you really don't need any evidence, and if you really don't require a standard of proof to judge that evidence to justify the validity of such a being, could you not justify the existence of any God on the face of this earth? This type of thinking is wrong for two reasons. One is that it's just downright impractical to waste time and energy testing all of these fantastical claims and rejecting all skepticism towards those claims with the justification of "you can't prove me wrong." Secondly, not only is it impractical, it's downright dishonest, to be quite frank, because there is no way for us to physically test those claims in the first place, thereby making it unfalsifiable by nature. And this is why the person making the positive claim, in this case the person claiming that a God does exist, must shoulder the burden of proof, not the skeptic. Still not convinced? Well, how about I present you with a hypothetical situation. Let's just say that we have a theist who makes a bunch of claims supporting the existence of their God. And supposedly, we on the atheist side have to provide evidence for God's non-existence. So instead of doing that, we shoot down each and every single one of those theistic claims that shows that a God exists. Does that mean that just because we didn't provide evidence for God's non-existence, that a theist automatically wins by default? Far from it. If we shoot down every single argument that a theist makes to support the existence of their God, they don't have a case. And herein lies the true double standard that we have yet to bring to light until now. And it's not with skeptics who systematically reject claims that have no evidence to support them. It's with claim makers, in this case, intellectually lazy and fairly dishonest theists, who attempt to shift the burden of proof onto the skeptic because they can't shoulder it themselves and won't care to admit it. So my advice to people who make this claim is essentially embrace that burden of proof. Don't try and run away from it. Embrace it. It came with you making a bold, and in this case, supernatural claim. So fulfill it, and make sure that that evidence that you have to support your claim also happens to fulfill the standard of proof set forth by academia. And then, and only then, can we have a serious conversation. But until then, I will not be lectured by the likes of intellectually lazy and dishonest people who cannot shoulder the burden of proof for themselves and instead turn around and call me a hypocrite because I don't do their work for them. May the truth always be heard. Peace.